Hi, this is PR Frank, and today we're going to take our website to the next level by adding some media. And so I want to create something that looks like this. You'll see our header has a background image. I've inserted an image here that text can flow around. And I've also inserted a YouTube video. You'll also see my footer has the same background as my header. So let's get started. So in Text Wrangler, which is a text editor that we can use for creating HTML, what we can do to add the background image to our header and footer is simply go to our style sheet, and already we have a selector for our header and we have a selector for our footer, and we could put the property background image in there, or we can add a selector for both of them at the same time. So that's what I'll do. I'll just say header, comma, footer, and what that'll do is it'll apply whatever I do inside of these curly braces to both the header and the footer. So in this case, I'll do background dash image. And the way that you specify a background image is by saying URL and the parentheses, and then you have to tell it exactly where your image is. So it's a little bit tricky because although, as you can see, I have an images folder with a blue pattern image in it, I can't just type images slash blue dash pattern.jpg. I'll show you what it would look like if I did that. If I go to my browser and I search for the file index.html, you'll see it didn't recognize that image in the images folder. And that's because if you look at my file structure, although the images folder has is in relation to the index folder there, my CSS is where I'm telling it where that image is. So from my styles CSS, I can't see inside of the folder called images. So what I have to tell my CSS is, hey, back out of that folder so you're in this other folder which is called HTML, and then look for the images folder. So the way we do that with CSS is we just type ... and that means back up one folder, so now you can see the images folder, then see the images folder, then see blue pattern.jpg inside. Let's save that and refresh our browser, and then you see it has the pattern applied to the header and the footer all at the same time. Now with the background image, there are a couple other properties you could add. We could also add this background repeat to choose how it will repeat. If we don't want it to repeat, we can say no dash repeat, and you'll see what will happen then. It only applies the image one time. We can also choose repeat X or repeat Y to repeat it along the X-axis or repeat it along the Y-axis. In this case, we just want it to continue to repeat to fill our entire background of our header or our footer. All right, so that's how we do background images for web pages. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to insert an image. As you can see from the page that we're trying to go for here, there's a small image about web design inserted next to our second paragraph. So what I'm going to do in the main, so I'll go to the main, here's the second paragraph, and what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and put an image tag right after that. The image tag that we use to insert an image is just img for image. Then we have to tell it our source. The source in this case equals a file in our images folder, and once again we are working from our index file, so we don't need to back out of the images file folder because the index page can see the images folder. And the picture we want is called web-design.jpg. Okay, it's that simple, and whenever we insert an image, we also have to make it accessible for people with visual disabilities, and we have to use the alt attribute to name that image, because what people with visual disabilities do is they have their browser read them text on a website, and if there's an image, that image should have an alt attribute so that a visually impaired person can hear what the content of that image is. In this case, it's an image about web design, so I'm just going to type web design in my alt image and end it with the angle bracket, And you'll notice that the image tag doesn't have an opening and a closing, it's just a standalone tag. So that's the very basics for an image. Let's go see how that turned out. If we refresh this page, we can see that it's large and it doesn't allow the text to wrap. So we can fix that pretty easily. What we do in terms of the size is we can give it a width. Now the width, I happen to know already, is 400. So let's cut that in half and just make the width 200 pixels. Okay, we'll save that and refresh it, and you'll see now it's a nice size. Now if we want the text to wrap around it, we can use the CSS Float property. So we have to go into our style sheet and we have to create a class. Now we've created an ID in another tutorial called container, and that starts with a hashtag. If we want to create a class can be applied to multiple selections within a web page, whereas an ID should only be used once. And a class is started with a dot. So it's just dot and whatever we want to call it. And I'll call it image right. And then what that's going to do is it's going to float that image right. It's going to float whatever I apply image right to the right. And so we put a property called float, and the value is right. So I can float our image right. I'll save that. And before we do that, we also have to go on the index page, and inside we have to put the attribute class equals image right. You'll notice there's no dot there. The dot is just used in the CSS style sheet. When we use the class, sorry, we have to put the equal sign there. When we use the class, we don't put the dot there. We just put the name of that class as defined in our style sheet. So let me save that and refresh it, and then you'll notice how the text just nicely wraps around our image. And it's not good design to have the text touching the image, so we can go back to our style sheet, and we can also apply padding to this image right. And what padding does, it just adds extra pixels around the outside of whatever that class is applied to. So in this case, it'll just add some extra pixels around the outside as a buffer. And let's just make it 10 pixels all the way around. Save that, refresh, and now we have some nice separation around our image, and it fits nicely and it looks good. Now let's embed video into the page. That's another type of media that people typically like to add to websites. So I have here in another tab the previous video tutorial. And what I can do with any video that's on YouTube, many other video hosting sites, is I can click the share button, and I have several options. I can just get the link, or I can email it. In this case, I'd like to embed it. Now, I happen to know that if I embed this video at its current size, which if I show more, scroll down, the current size is 560 by 315, but I can choose a custom size, and let me just make it like 450 pixels. If I press the tab key, it's going to automatically tell me what the height of that should be, so we have a proportional video. So we have a custom size of 450 by 253. I usually uncheck show suggested videos when the video finishes because you don't know what it's going to suggest. As you can see, there are plenty of suggested videos on the right here. Interesting stuff. You can tell what kind of stuff that I look at. I like player controls. I like the title and player actions as well. And of course, you can do privacy enhanced mode. In any case, when you change all of these parameters down here, it changes the embed code, which is an iframe tag. So if I click in here, I do Control or Command A, and I'm just going to copy that. If I switch back over to Text Wrangler, I'm just going to go to the very bottom of my site and paste that iframe in. All right, so let me save and refresh the page. And now you can see at the bottom here we have a nice video embedded in our page, ready to play on YouTube. I can play it, I can do full screen. There we go. So, I've shown you how to add background images, images that have text wrapped around them, how to resize those, and also how to embed video. Now let's do the same thing in Dreamweaver. So first thing we're going to do, we can go to our CSS designer, target our styles sheet, target header, And we can easily add with this fourth property across the top and all of the background properties. So we click background. Right now we have a background color, and the next category is background image. So it's pretty easy. We'll just click on the folder. We browse around, and of course it takes us directly to the images folder here inside of our website. In this case, I want to target blue pattern, and I choose open, and you'll see what it does. It adds the /images/blue-pattern.jpg. It already knows it needs to back out of the images folder as I showed you in text wrangler, and then target the images folder, and immediately it starts to style the background of the header. Now it didn't do it to the footer because I didn't make a multiple style sheet. It's a little easier here in Dreamweaver to just target what you need and select it. So let me go ahead and do that. So for footer, I'll do the same thing. I'll just target, click on the folder, target blue pattern, choose open. Okay. So what we have is we'll have multiple selectors with that background image in it. Okay. You also, as you can see, will have background repeat. I'll show you how it might repeat in different ways. And lots of other, by the way, ideas about how to style that background image so it does what you want it to do. So you can experiment with those. All right, the next thing we'd like to do is to come in here and click anywhere around the second paragraph, and we want to insert an image. So if we go to our insert panel, we have insert image is the second choice. I just choose insert image, and a dialog box comes up and it says web design, and I just want to make sure that's the right one. Yep, it's inside the DW folder, web design, and I can choose open. Now when we do that, it just inserts the tag image source. It tells us the source, gives us the automatic width and height, and it gives us an empty alt tag. I'm not going to fill it in the code. I'm just going to click on that image. Now if you don't already have this properties panel at the bottom of your Dreamweaver layout, you're going to want to get that because it's really handy. But you can go to Window and make sure there's a check mark next to Properties. And a lot of times it will pop out at the top, and you just drag it down so it locks into the bottom here. It's a real handy place to have it. As you can see, I have the source identified here, and there's the width and the height. In the text wrangler version of this, I reduced that to 200 by 200. Now, because these are locked, they constrain the size. I can just change one of them and press tab, and the other one automatically changes. You'll also notice it changes in the code. I can also add my alt text here right in the properties panel. So I'll just type web design, press tab, and it automatically appears here as the alt attribute. So that's really a handy way to mess with images. Now the next thing we did is we made that thing float right, and we added a class. It also has a place to drop down and add a class, but we have no classes in our style sheet as of yet. So what we got to do is we got to create one. So to create a class, you go to CSS Designer panel. You can target anything you want. When you click on the plus sign for selectors, it's going to give you what it thinks you want. It wants me to mess with the image inside of the P, inside of the main. I don't really want to do that, so I just delete that. And to add a class, once again, it's just dot and icon. I'm going to call it image right. And what that does is it creates a class. So I can press enter, and now I have an image right class, and then I can apply anything I'd like to it. And what I need to do is just scroll down, or in this case, I guess up. We just scroll till we see the float property, and we want to float it right. So we just click that, and it'll automatically add float right to the image right property. The other thing we did to it is we added 10 pixel padding all the way around. So I'll just type in 10 px, click the link in the center, and now we have 10 pixel padding all the way around. Now if we come back over here into our properties panel and drop down the class, you'll see that we have a choice of image right as a class. And I click that, and you'll see immediately that image is floated and the text wraps around it. And if you look at our image source in the code, it also has a class applied, now a class attribute image right. So that's how we do all that in Dreamweaver. If you go to the insert panel, there are some different ways to add some media. As you can see, there's HTML5 video and all these other kinds of media that you can do. iframe exists, but it doesn't give you all the iframe code. So really the easiest way to add the code that you need is to go to the internet and copy the iframe property that we already did, and it still exists with the same 450 by 253 pixels. I'll just come back over to Dreamweaver and paste it where I want in the code view. Okay, that's probably the easiest way to embed a video. You can explore lots of other ways to embed video on your website if you don't want it to be hosted by an external site. But these days it's really handy to have your video hosted somewhere else because it'll work with all sorts of different browsers, and it'll give users the flexibility to follow you and see what you're doing out there. So let's see what it looks like. We're going to preview this in Google Chrome, save all of our changes. We'll go back to Chrome, and as you can see, we have a header with a pattern, we have an image wrapped with text, and we have our embedded video. And that's how to add media at the entry level in a text editor and in Dreamweaver. Thanks for watching. Our next tutorial will be about adding hyperlinks and other kinds of links.